Thank you so much for braving the Salt Lake Bees traffic out there. Yes, you deserve a round of applause for that. Why not? My name is Amy J. Hawkins. I serve as chair of the Ballpark Community Council. My neighbor Erica Carlson is MC today, and she has asked me to give a quick introduction to tonight's festivities. We are here to celebrate the 3 design contest team winners today, but as we also talked about in last week's Ballpark Next showcase meeting at the Salt Lake Community College, today is also about celebrating the drive and energy that everybody in this room keeps bringing to this project and this community. That is great. That is what we're going to need to get all the way across the finish line. We wouldn't get here if it weren't for the support of a lot of community partners who do the unglamorous work of showing up for each other, who answer emails or phone calls from neighbors reaching out to neighbors, residents who walk into a business for the first time, or a nonprofit, or a community event for the first time, who think to themselves, hey, there's a chance I might have fun or learn about something I care about or connect with somebody. And it's probably worth my time. It's probably worth it to put myself out there. And then they hit pay dirt. They hit one of you. Keep it up. The folks at the Urban Indian Center of Salt Lake are doing the work of connecting and creating community every day. And they're doing it through teaching about culture, through Indigenous Fashion Week, through sustaining each other, through building a community of healthy choices. Literally, look at their calendar. You see natives in the fight against diabetes. You see Zumba classes and supporting mental health services. Together, we have a lot of hopes in common for the future of this community, for our physical health and our cultural wealth. Thank you for hosting us in your space tonight. I'll turn it over to Christina Graves.
Mike, that is how you say hello in my father's language. My name is Christina Groves. I am an enrolled member of the Indian tribe, and I'm also part Hopi on my mother's side. I want to, again, say hello and welcome you here to the Urban Indian Center of Salt Lake. Some of you, if you've been in the neighborhood for a long time, probably know us as the Indian Walk-In Center. We'll probably always be known as the Indian Walk-In Center. About a decade ago, we changed our name to kind of really reflect where we wanted to go with our services and in talking about our people. So just really briefly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we do here. If you've never been into our center before, this is our hall. Before COVID, we hosted a lot of community activities here. And now that we're coming out of the emergency, we hope to be doing that more and giving people more opportunity to come check us out, see a little bit about what we do in our community. In this little space, we also have a small family practice medical clinic, and so our community members are able to come see a provider here in a space that feels comfortable for them. We opened our clinic in 2020 to address COVID testing, COVID vaccination, and have been able to expand on that. My day job here is as the Behavioral Health Program Director, so we have had an outpatient substance use clinic and mental health counseling clinic downstairs as well. And then our other division that is service-facing is our culture. We do youth and family programs, we have elder programming, we teach culture, we have connection for our community members, and hopefully as we move forward in this transition, we're able to figure out how do we be a good neighbor in the Ballpark community. So thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk about our center, and I will turn the tone over to Mayor Mendenhall. Or Erica.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone. My name is Erica or Erika. Thank you so much for being here. Another round of applause to the Urban Indian Center for all they do in our community. And tonight, before we begin with really the events of celebrating the winners and thinking forward, I want to ground us in purpose. Why are we here? And so much of our life, our leadership, and the future of a place is about purpose. But for tonight, let's be grounded in why are we here. So we have up on the slide, right behind me, our purpose for this evening. We want to celebrate the design competition and winners. We want to inform the community about next steps and how to stay engaged in this process, because this is going to be an ongoing engagement. So how to stay connected, how to stay involved. And to think about what are some of the themes that have resonated most with you. As you walked in today, you saw some beautiful and amazing quotes from all the applications circulate on different slides. And I hope you saw something of yourself in those quotes. We also have over here just a visual representation of, again, in this ongoing process, what's resonating with you as you think about the future of this place. And so our process for tonight is we're going to talk a little bit about the design competition that was launched, hard to believe, only a few months ago, yet here we are today. We're going to talk about those themes, talk about what to expect around community engagement and next steps. We'll have an opportunity to ask Mayor Mendenhall some questions about what should we expect in this community engagement process. Then we're going to do some celebration of the winners of the Ballpark Next competition. I'm already excited to see them and to see their great ideas on the big screen and to celebrate them for their hard work, along with all the people who put time and energy and effort into thinking forward and thinking about the future of this beautiful place and neighborhood. And then we'll talk about how to stay connected and how to get plugged into the Ballpark Community Council. So that's what's on the agenda for tonight. But before we jump into all of that, I want to get a sense of who is in the room. So I would like for you to raise your hand and give a little cheer if you are a Ballpark resident or neighbor. Raise your hand and give a little cheer. Woo! I'm right there with you. Raise your hand and give a little cheer if you are a business owner in the Ballpark neighborhood. Woo! Awesome! I see Ron from Stained Glass Illusions, Missy from Public Coffee. Thank you to Fillings and Emulsions for the amazing cookies that they provided tonight. And last but not least, raise your hand if you are a city official or a city staff member. Woo! Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And last but not least, raise your hand if you're just someone who cares about the future of Salt Lake City and our neighborhood. Woo! Awesome. All right, thank you all so much for your energy and your presence here tonight. I would like to turn it over to Corinne Piazza, who is with the Salt Lake City Redevelopment Agency, to talk a little bit about the Ballpark Next competition. Over to you, Corinne.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm one of the many city staff who worked on the design competition, so I'm just going to give you a really brief recap of how it went. So some of you may recognize this graphic from the website. It was our step-by-step process of what happened with all the applications. So as you can see, the first step, we gathered all the applications that came in, and a city review team narrowed them down to 30, and that was 10 in each category. So 10 resident, 10 student, and 10 professional. Then it moved on to a community-based selection committee, and they took those 30 semifinalists and narrowed it down to 9 and 3 in each category. Those 9 are what you saw online. It went to public vote so the community could determine who the winners were in the end. And that's what we're here tonight to celebrate and unveil those winners that you saw online and were able to vote on. Next slide, please. And the prize amounts for the winners are $5,000 for student, $5,000 for resident, 10 for student, and 15 for professional. And some fun facts are we had 123 applications total with 14 student, 17 professional, and 92 resident applications, which is so exciting. So much great interest and excitement behind that. And we wanted to thank our community-based selection committee because it was a really hard job. You can imagine, even from the 9 that you saw online, there's a lot of unique ideas and approaches to what to do with the ballpark site. And so it took a lot of effort for folks to really hone down and pick those final 9, and they dedicated their personal time to do so. So we wanted to thank everyone on that list: Amy, Fraser, Ron, Jonathan, Chelsea, Wendy, Christine, Lisa, and Darren for their participation with that. Yeah, round of applause. And now I will hand it over to Mayor Mendenhall.
Thanks, Erin. This is an exciting night, and I think Corinne introduced herself really humbly, but when the Larry Miller Corporation said, we're leaving, we had days to turn around an ability to announce a competition, and then, 60-day window that I gave our team to execute gathering those submissions, and Corinne has been at the lead of that on behalf of Salt Lake City 3 Development Agency. So can we have a round of applause for Corinne and everyone? This is an exciting night, and we honestly weren't surprised, but I hope you can know about the quality of submissions. 123 was really satisfying, exciting. It showed the interest and momentum. And if you didn't hear, within the first 48 hours of announcing the competition, thanks to the national coverage about the team moving, we had clicks on the Ballpark Next website from 48 of the 50 states. Within a few more days, the entire nation had gone to this website. And we received submissions really from a lot of different places. But most of them, as you could see before, were from residents. You can stay here. The competition brought a whole lot of ideas and provided inspiration, which was the purpose of this. And I just want to reiterate before we get to the end of tonight and the winners, this is not about what is going to happen next necessarily. The whole purpose of this was to throw the idea out there, what could happen here without baseball? And you succeeded in helping us generate momentum and energy around this big idea. That was the purpose of it. Also, for the ones that don't make the cut tonight to those winning 3, there really aren't any themes or ideas that have to fall off the table for the others. And so, as Erica said and Corinne referenced again, we want to keep hearing from you. So we'll talk to you tonight also, but don't let a good idea dissolve because they didn't make it through on the winner sheet. All the good things should stay on the table. So before we get into the main announcement of the design competition winners, I want to take some time to highlight these collective themes that happened over the course of all of the submitted concepts. This word cloud has the most common words that were used in all 123 submissions. And you can see that there's some really standout ones like community housing and resources and neighborhood, and there's also some hidden gems in there like popcorn and festive and nostalgia. These are good words, and all of this is helpful to us. Let's go to the next slide. The design competition is just one of many ways actually that this community has been sharing their thoughts about the Ballpark neighborhood in the last couple of years. Back in 2021, before we knew that the bees were moving, the city worked with this community to create the Ballpark Station Area Plan. And I know a lot of you helped with us in that process. We gathered a lot of good information that is still relevant to this today. And then more recently, upon the news that the team was leaving, this Ballpark Community Council, thank you, Amy Hawkins and your team, gathered ideas on how this change can best serve the neighborhood. And 150 people participated in the community council process. And 4 big things bubbled to the top: a community recreation center, more local businesses, including food, green space and parks, and a performance art venue. So you've been feeding the ideas to us for a long time. One statement from that document that stood out to me is, regardless of how the 13.5 acres are used, people want to see something beautiful, a place and activities that will both bring people here and serve those who live here, and I wholeheartedly agree with this. Let's go to slide 6. For the design competition, our data team zoomed in on the leading themes
that were provided by, we group the most commonly the most commonly used words into categories. So for example, the words park, garden, nature, and green space were really familiar, so we'd group those into a category. And the data team also wanted to see how these leading themes aligned with the Ballpark Community Council's top ideas that came out of the 150 people who contributed there. So those ones that align with the community councils are with the ones with the star. And those are among the top 16 leading themes that came out of the design competition. So there's a lot of good overlap there already. We wanted to take the input one step further tonight, and we want to know how you feel about these themes. And so that banner hanging over on the bulletin board, and in your little packet that can either look like a medical sample kit, which it is not, or a cookie sleeve, which you could turn it into when you take a cookie later, has stickers, and we want to know from you, we want you to put these on the themes that resonate with you the most. You can put them all on one, you can spread them out however you'd like, but please do that tonight. And regardless of the proposals that win, as I said, all of these design competition themes and the community council's ideas will be plugged into our next phase of community engagement. No ideas are lost tonight. Next slide. So next, this is our roadmap. This is what we've been following so far, and you can see that now we're moving into this focused community engagement process, much like we did starting in 2021 with the Ballpark Station Area Plan. But now that we know the bees are leaving, we can re-examine what's possible for the ballpark, specifically more through this more accurate lens of what will happen here. So the upcoming community visioning process on here will involve city staff and engagement specialists that the city will hire, contractors who do this kind of work day in and day out, to come in and work with you as our community. We'll also work with the businesses in the community and other area stakeholders, like the Urban Indian Center. And that will help us create the Ballpark Next set of guiding principles. These principles will help inform the vision for the ballpark site and the next steps for the development process. We go to 8, thank you. The top row of this slide, and I know we can put all of these online for you tomorrow, so that if it's too small to see, you can check it out later. But the five side-by-side elements are the research phase that will help build this really thorough and strategic community visioning process. And that research is starting right here tonight with you. So in that packet is also a folded piece of paper with a QR code on it. And on that site, we'd like you to enter your contact information. We want you to indicate how you would like to provide feedback. Do you want to take surveys? Do you want in-person events? Do you prefer a website platform? And we also want you to specify if you want to participate in some focus groups that we will be doing through this engagement process. Those are the questions the QR code will lead you to. But if you're not comfortable doing this and that is not your electronic jam, then you can fill out your information on that piece of paper with a good old pencil or a pen that we can provide you and give it to one of our city staff at the table tonight. So also during this phase, we're going to start integrating the existing input from the Ballpark Community Council ideas document, the design competition themes, and the Ballpark Station Area Plan. So we've got these 3 already created informing tools for us. We're going to think big. We're going to perform nationwide research on successful outcomes of similar scenarios where a sports team has relocated. We're going to be compiling the facts of this area around the physical space, utilities, and whatever constraints and opportunities there may be built into this space. And we're going to be working with the Larry H. Miller and the Gail Miller Family Foundation and their partners on how the $100 million legacy fund can support the ballpark neighborhood and beyond. I know that Don Starling was hoping to be here tonight. I'm not sure if he made it out, but they are anxiously engaged in this entire process with us. And the data that we're gathering, the research that we're doing, and the metrics that already exist for this neighborhood will also help inform those investments. Compiling all the information in this phase will be somewhat labor intensive, and it's going to take us a few months to create the strongest foundation for a well-informed community visioning process, which you'll see in that next middle step there. That process includes a combination of community-wide forums, in-person events, online tools, and a working group to help advise what the guiding principles look like. A recent example of when the city did this is when we partnered with engagement specialists, like we'll be bringing in here, and we made a visioning process happen with the Japanese American community. I might just wait a second. Thanks, Chief Lieb. Chief is leaving. Firefighters love those sirens, Chief. There's an HVAC issue here, and we appreciate our hosts again, but the windows are open to give us a little ventilation. It's worth it. But we partnered with the Japanese American community to create guiding principles for Japantown Street and its future growth down there on First South between 3rd West and West Temple. Second. And Corinne also helped guide that process. So the guiding principles identify preferences that end up serving as the backbone for both short-term and long-term land use strategies. Those guiding principles will help inform the vision for the ballpark site and the next steps of our development process. Next slide, thanks. So as I mentioned, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you in an ongoing way. Please use your stickers. Please fill out the engagement survey that you'll link to through that QR code or on the paper. And you might be wondering what this friendly wooden stick is. It's not a tongue depressor, folks. Please don't put them in your mouths. We want to know how you're feeling tonight. And I love that Erica has been able to help us in a consistent way convene these conversations and begin them by grounding us in what our purpose is. You're fantastic at it, and I hope that you'll continue to help us, Erica. Yes. But when you leave tonight, on that table where you received your little packet, we want you to put your little wooden stick into one of 3 cups that identifies how you're feeling as you leave tonight. So I'll leave the questions in the cups a mystery for you to read on your way out, but that's what this stick is, and it'll help us get a sense of how you're feeling. And it might help us also to better cater to the next meetings that we have. Okay, now slide 10 will take us to a little time for some questions before we announce our design competition winners, and I think Erica's gonna help facilitate this part. And Corinne might also be the best one to answer questions.
All right, so this is an opportunity for the next, let's say 10, 15 minutes or so to ask Mayor Mendenhall, and Corinne might be asked some questions as well about what does the future of this community engagement process look like. So the floor is open. And may I remind you that a question ends in a question mark. All right. I know we got some questions. I got you out of the corner of my eye, I'm sorry. No. Okay.
Well, actually, can I? Yeah. That was Councilmember Alejandro Puy, and I failed to thank our 4 council members who were here tonight. Of course, Councilmember Darren Mono, who's our chair, and your council person for District 5. Councilmember Alejandro Puy for District 2. Councilmember Anavaldo Moros for District 4, and Councilmember Dan Dugan for District 6. Thank you for being here tonight.
Questions? Yes, I love that. Thank you for kicking us off. I'm gonna get my steps in by running the mic.
Hi. My name is Ala, I'm a Ballpark resident, and I remember the previous time we met to talk about the future of the ballpark, one of the concerns had to do with the space sitting empty while we are deciding sort of what to do. And in relation to that, I was wondering what the timeline is for the project and how do we make sure that, it sort of doesn't sit there and does nothing for the community for an extended period of time. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. I'm sure you're not the only one who has that one.
That's a great question. We had that come up recently in one of our selection committee meetings. Essentially, we share your passion and goal for not letting it sit vacant for any significant amount of time. And so part of what we're doing here and really charting out those steps is so that we have a high-level timeline that we're backing into. Essentially, once the team is gone, we already have our next steps in place. So you'll see the community engagement process is probably going to be pretty fast, relatively speaking, and that's because we're kind of piecing all those together so that by the time the team is done, in about 2 years, we have our next steps in place so that it's not a vacant sugar hole for a long time, because that's what none of us want.
Thank you. See another question back here?
So is there like a bid process? Who oversees that? Who's on the committee that reviews that? Is that your bureaucrats? Can the community be involved in that? Like, what's the nuts and bolts when we get to the end of this, or the beginning of the end?
Thanks, Raising.
You mean for the community engagement?
The actual thing, like is it RDA? For those of us that aren't steeped in bureaucracy and construction.
I'm sorry, do you mean for the community engagement process?
No, I mean
for the final.
Oh, okay.
Like the tear down,
Yeah.
build up, whatever.
And that we don't know yet, and I think that's a good thing. So a big request from the community is that everyone is really involved in the process and determining really what those next development steps are. So I think essentially, there's not a developer selected or necessarily that whole process yet, but this community engagement piece will inform guiding principles that then help us start turning that into what happens next with development.
But ultimately, the redevelopment agency board, who is the city council, will be presented with the submissions. So the whole process we're in right now will help us shape whatever we end up bringing out for either a request for, there's an RFP or an RFQ. Basically, give us your ideas or give us your formal proposal. It hasn't been determined yet which of those processes we can do. If you do an RFQ, that means you're casting a big net and you're saying, hey world, here's our guiding principles, here's the built infrastructure issues, here's what's the facts of what's on the ground, here's the participation that we may be willing to bring in addition to our land, which hasn't been determined yet. Here's a $100 million investment in the community here that is looking to activate through the development of these ways, which we've yet to determine. And the RFQ could cast this net to just say, what are your sort of formal ideas? If you do an RFP, if you do an RFQ, then you get to an RFP process. And an RFP, a request for proposals, is where you pick a final plan. An RFQ can help you refine and get some bigger ideas from a development perspective about what an RFP should look like. And through all of these stages, the redevelopment agency board will be involved. Public comment, there will probably be other public comment because of our community engagement process above and beyond their normal open meetings. And then ultimately, the mayor signs the contracts. So we get approval for funding and participation through the elected legislative body, and the mayor always signs the contracts.
All right, we've got 2 questions from this side of the room. Come on, y'all. Look it over on this side of the room. Any other questions coming up for folks? I know you got them. And someone probably has the same one. Awesome. Thanks, Priya.
So with the 3 winners that we're getting today, what happens with that in terms of there's going to be 3 of them, so is it like a mesh of those? Is the RFQ an architect that it goes to, and then RFP goes to construction people? I guess that's the part I'm confused about.
Great question. Thank you for asking that one about how does what's going on here tonight relate to the end outcome?
Let me just start and then you can review process, okay? Let me reiterate that these winners are absolutely not what we will see in the ultimate RFP, I would say. I think that they are the best ideas through the city and the community and the broad public voting process that will inform whatever we create. But think about the opportunity that we could collectively imagine, and I'm making this up on the fly, to mash them all together, or to pull themes that didn't come through in the three winners into a development that, you know, picks certain concepts. There could, it does not necessarily mean that the winners are going to be in the RFQ or the RFP. Now, I think the process that we've all gone through, we don't want to throw it out the window. We're learning so much about what we want to see, what we need in the neighborhood. I don't think we're going to throw that away. But the winners that you see tonight, we're not going to just dust that off and put that out as an RFP. Is that fair enough?
Great question, thank you for that one. Anyone else on this side before I go back over to this side? Going once? Twice? All right, back over to this side of the room. My favorite side of the room, just kidding. Sorry, I could be a little shady, but with all love.
So my question is, how tied are we, what are the strings with the Larry Miller Group? How strong are those strings? What's tied to the $100 million? What has to happen to receive that money? Free money, or how's that going to work?
Thank you for your question.
I wish Don Sterling were here tonight so he could answer that again for you in the way that he did when we were at Public was it March when we met before? They are absolutely committed. Now, the Miller Group is not giving $100 million, or the Miller Family Foundation is not giving the $100 million. They will be a contributor, but they are absolutely leading the fundraising effort. The city's not, you know, we're not the fundraisers here. They are doing that on their own. Our process will inform, but that money will happen. That investment is basically guaranteed by Gail Miller herself, and Don Sterling would stand here and tell you, we're gonna do it. He's actually, I think we'll have subsequent community meetings where Don will be here, and there will be meetings, I think, focused exclusively on those investment opportunities, not just the development around it. So you will hear this from him. But he's quite enthusiastic about the whole idea of it being very possible. He thinks that this is going to be, I should say he's less intimidated than he was when I asked him to lead a $100 million investment the first time. There's not really anything like this happening in the country. There's not a $100 million philanthropic commitment tied to a 13.5-acre development opportunity next to a downtown with the track station, with an awesome historic neighborhood community, great local businesses, in the fastest growing state in the nation. There's nothing like this. So he's very enthusiastic, and they're absolutely committed. What it benefits needs to be community-based benefits. And when we talk about social determinants of health and I start to lose people, that's one realm of potential. We're talking about access to recreation, education, job training, wealth building, mobility, basically, the things that help us thrive and become more mobile in life, whether that's economically, educationally, culturally. Cultural centers could be one. I mean, I almost don't want to define it too much because the opportunity of what it could be is vast.
And could you go back to that slide real fast? And for the last two questions about what happens with the design competition ideas and then what happens with the legacy fund, you can see those on that top row, and that will be a basis and the foundation of our community engagement. So those won't be the last time you hear of those themes or hear of the opportunity for the fund, but a lot of that information is going to come to you. So when you're brainstorming as a community, you have those facts and that background and that data that can feed into what the vision is with these different partners and ideas that we've received.
Thank you. My active side of the room, over to you. My reach.
So following up on that last question, what do you guys envision the Miller Group's, involvement or effect on the actual design outcome? And do you think that they could or would actually be the development group that develops the site?
They have not talked about that with us. I mean, We wouldn't preempt anybody from submitting ideas or responding to an RFQ, but that has not been a focus that they've brought to us. But you had a question just before that about...
how much influence do you
Oh, influence on the development. He asked how much influence the Miller Group could have on the ultimate development. I think the influence will come from what those programmatic investments will be. And we obviously, we think about it as two parallel tracks. We have to know what the space needs would be, what the complementary uses would be through the legacy investment fund that would be built into whatever the development is. How they're built into it could depend on whoever responds, who that architect and the urban designers and the planners are that bring us the responses. But obviously we need to know what those activations are. So those parallel tracks are going to merge before we go out to RFQ and then RFP, if we go out to RFQ.
You. Okay, I'm going to go to this side of the room. Okay, I see 3 more hands. We'll take 3 more questions. Over to you, and then over to you, and then over to you.
What if I have 2 questions? I'm curious what the incentives are for the Larry H. Miller Group to fundraise on behalf of all of us. First question. I'm gonna stop that. Other people a chance.
Thanks for your question.
I think I've shared this with you, but over that more than a year of meeting with them and trying to change their mind to stay here, they literally have the values of their company emblazoned on the wall as soon as you get off the elevators in their headquarter offices. And these are words like stewardship and helping do all the good you can until there's no more good to do. They are about building community. And I know from those meetings and listening to Gail in particular that she and her family do care very much about the community. They care about the legacy here, and she, I think, can't speak for her, but I think she places a high value on her part of that legacy here. And to leave a community that needs investment and positive activation for the blank slate of their 1,300 acres that they'll be developing doesn't, in my opinion, resonate with the values that they stand by. I didn't have to say that to them because we've been through so much discussion about the opportunity here to stay here, to change and take the ballpark to the next level with the bees here and doing more activation in these spaces. So that conversation happened for a long time. And by the time they told us they were leaving, I asked if they would make a new kind of investment in this community through their foundational arm. And they've made a lot of significant investments around the state of Utah in recent months, especially, and in the last couple of years as they've been changing their portfolio. So they said yes.
Final 2 questions before we move to celebrating the winners from tonight and unveiling the winners.
I know we've had a lot of questions on timeline, and I think that's the biggest concern here. How do we not end up with a fleet block that goes through several rounds, our RFPs and different mayors and different leadership taking ownership? How do we, or could you give some visibility on how long is this portion of the timeline versus the RFQ timeline, RFP timeline? We know those can stack up to 2, 3, 4 years before even anything is in the ground. So could you give us any visibility on what you are thinking there?
Yeah, Erin like that. You want to go over it again, too? Well, let me make a comment and then first.
I feel you, and it's not just fleet block, it was sugar bowl too, and there's different factors on those spaces. But Okay, there's a part I can't comment on, which is whether or not I'm your mayor after November, or January rather. But if I am, you've got continuity and you know what my passion is to make this happen. You know where I stand on this too, because I'm going to keep showing up for you. But the city council also has, I mean, we've got all of the even council districts up for election this November. Change could happen, and that's just a reality that we're in. But the momentum of this community and the $100 million philanthropic commitment here is quite unique. There wasn't a community like this around Fleet Block. I can't judge on why Sugar House happened and was the Sugar Bowl for quite so long. That was a longer time ago. But Councilmember Mono wants to say something, and Corinne can talk to you about, which she's already said though, Tess, around we know the date they're leaving, we're loading this backwards. We may have shorter times for responses than we traditionally have. I think there's a double-edged sword to that. It's good because we want to move. It's harder because you have to respond faster.
I appreciate that question, and it came up twice already tonight, and that's also my biggest fear for this, is that we don't repeat what we saw at the Fleet Block, or what we're still seeing at the Fleet Block, which is a redevelopment that takes many, many years. And as I participated in the committee and looked at all the applications and sort of have been talking to a lot of people about what they envision for this, I think that's something that we have to sort of come to an agreement with as a community. And it sounds to me like the comments tonight are saying that, but that the speed of redevelopment is maybe more important than exactly my idea gets built or my idea gets built, because in reality we can't, like, different tenants and different users and different ideas will come to the surface at different times, and we sort of have to choose the ones that are ready to go and ready to actually put a shovel in the ground, rather than wait for what could be my particular, like one community's particular idea or one community member's particular idea. So I think that's going to be really important in the selection process. And to me, for this project and this redevelopment, that's where sort of on that lever of fast versus perfect, don't let the perfect be the enemy of good. I think we need to redevelop this quick. We can't let this sit for years. And that's where I feel. So, but that's, like the mayor said, there's 7 council members and the mayor, there's 8 elected officials, and there's an entire community, and we all change and move in and out. So hopefully we can get it done quickly and it'll happen. But with anything in government, there's always that risk.
And if I can just insert a resident's perspective there. These folks may change. There are elections and a democracy, but we, as residents and business owners and people who live here, are the continuity piece. And that's why it's so important we continue to show up. So just want to make that transparent, because we're here for the long haul. I mean, I got that 30-year mortgage, so it's going to be a very long haul. Okay, you'll email me, great. All right, any other questions before we move to celebrating the winners tonight? All right, let's see the winners. Over to you, Mayor.
Thanks, Erica and Corinne. Thanks, everybody, for bringing your questions. Okay, so you saw how we've come to this point. The public vote determined the final winner in each category, and we had a total of 4,607 votes. That's amazing. And first up, we're going to announce the winner for our student category. And that student winner is Nicholas Tate Barney and his team from Utah State University. Come on up here. Congratulations. And you can see this was an incredibly close race with only 43 votes between your winning submission and the next one. So thanks to everybody who submitted, but congratulations, you guys. I want to tell you a little bit about their design. Nicholas and his team envisioned an urban living environment to serve those living in the neighborhood as well as those coming to visit. Their concept focused on enhancing social vibrancy, increasing the affordability and attainability of housing, creating a dense urban environment and entertainment zone with beautiful urban design quality. Uses include a ballpark market, a park, dining opportunities, food truck space, a duck pond and boardwalk, garden space, and a walking trail and skating ribbon, just to name a few of the amenities. Thank you, team. Great job. Okay, now for our resident winner. The resident is Oscar Arvizu. All right, Oscar, come on up. Congratulations. Can I tell, you can stay up here while I tell about your awesome, and he won by a landslide, folks. Oscar envisioned a sky garden. This is a concept that included a creative reuse of the existing structure and featured an elevated park space for local restaurants and businesses, a year-round biodome and greenhouse, and event space as well. He also incorporated sustainable practices such as solar power and LED lighting. From sunset seating to playgrounds, his overall concept promotes a place to support physical and mental well-being for all. Great work, Oscar. It's pretty cool. Oscar, did you mean to have a smiley face from bird's eye view there? I've been wondering about that. Okay, finally is the winner of our professional category. Do you want to give a drum roll on your metal seats here? The winner is Tessa Arneson and team. Please join me and come on up here for women's sports. And her team have invited us to reimagine the ballpark as a hub for locally owned small businesses anchored by the first women's multi-sport venue, the She Plays Here ballpark. Concept, it focuses on creating vibrancy through community-focused uses, commerce and walkability from women's sports to a concert venue, and green space to local businesses, incubator space. This concept focuses on inclusive year-round activations. Congratulations, Tessa and your team. All right, thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you to the 4,700 voters out there who helped us narrow this down. And thank you for the inspiration you brought with your energy, your big ideas, your dreaming of daylighting the creek, of building elevated park spaces, of activating this space 365 days a year. It's really been such a success for us. And now I'm going to turn the mic back over to our Ballpark Community Council to wrap us up tonight. Or Erica. Sorry.
Can we give the winners another round of applause and maybe some drum rolls on seats? I don't know about you all, but I am feeling such a sense of excitement around possibilities and what might come next. And so as we close out tonight's engagement and continue to enjoy the amazing cookies provided by Billings and Emulsions, thank you again to them. I want to leave you with a couple action steps. First action step, in your packet, get involved. Scan that QR code. Talk about how you want to be involved in this process. As I mentioned earlier, our elected officials, through the nature of democracy, will likely change over this long process. But we, as residents, are the ones who determine our future. And so it's so important that we stay involved and we stay connected to each other. Next, get involved and get connected with your Ballpark Community Council. And I would love if I could have our Ballpark Community Council board members just stand, say their name so you can see and put a face to the name. So Amy, I'm looking at you first. Sorry, girl. Say your name.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Hawkins. I stood up at the beginning.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy.
I'd love to meet you, seriously.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amy. Over to you, Doug.
I'm Doug Flagler.
Thanks, Doug. Who else do we have?
I'm Fraser Nelson, I'm just joined the board, and I want to let you know we have a website coming, e-newsletters, thanks to our colleague Jamie, volunteer in the community, so it'll be a lot easier to communicate with us.
Awesome. All right, and as we wrap up here tonight, don't forget to vote with your stickers, a little thing I called dot voting around the themes that resonated most with you. And last but not least, we're gonna do a little straw poll. As you exit tonight, you will see 3 cups. You got your little coffee stirrer. Drop your stirrer in how you are feeling as you walk out of this room tonight. This is just a chance to get a pulse or temperature check about what are you feeling as a community. And so that's what we're going to ask you to do as we close. But the last thing that I want to say and close with is that, and this I won't get on my soapbox too much, but what I'll say is that the media or popular narrative might have you thinking that the ballpark is a community of problems. And I want us to reframe our community as a community of possibility. And we are a community of possibility and positivity, and it's up to us as residents working with our city officials to make that happen. So let's give everyone, including yourselves, a round of applause for showing up tonight.